Another podcast, another day.
New sponsor.
Another day, another dollar. Yeah.
Who's the sponsor?
New sponsor.
New Rift.
New Riff.
Single barrel.
Which is actually not a sponsor at all.
They are. They just don't know it yet.
Yeah. I actually really enjoy their bourbon. This single barrel is really delicious. They haven't been around that long, so there's a place not too far from us. I actually have a really dope humidor. The name of the place is called Party Source. So the same dude who owns Party Source owns New Riff. It's right next door. The bourbon is delicious. It's actually one of my new favorites. It's really good. The single barrel in particular is awesome.
I just don't know how you fit that much bourbon in one barrel and distribute it to the masses.
I don't know.
Isn't that weird to you?
It is a little wild. I'm going to call this, I don't want to call it an emergency episode, but it is an episode. And
Sure
I did mention on the previous episode that we'd have an interview this week, which it is our fault.
It is.
We had to cancel the interview. And the guest has not only been awesome through the process, this particular guest we are really excited to interview, which we will do in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
But there was some shit that happened that we won't get into, so we had to kind of bail off of that, and then we'll have him. See, I already gave it away. It's a him. We'll have him on in 2 weeks from now. So
that's his pronoun.
That's his pronoun. That's what he identifies as. But
who knows?
Could really be anything.
Could be a woman's bottle. Could be a horse.
That's true.
Could be any animal.
So on this day, we're doing something. Again, I don't want to call it an emergency. We were going to do this anyway, regardless, long term. But just, we had to expedite doing this particular thing, kind of reconfigure what we're doing on the other things. So it's probably going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. It's not going to be too long. It's probably not going to expand to an hour. So it'll be pretty digestible for everybody.
Sometimes life gets in the way.
Sometimes life gets in the way.
Sometimes when it's your Maury moment, you got to get on that stage and sit down and talk to Maury. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. Yep.
That's basically what it boils down to. A story for another time.
A story for another day. You know what's weird about it is it's bad just situationally. If you've described things to me over the course of the last 24 hours, that I'm not going to lie to you, part of my head went, it's going to make pretty good podcast material one of these days.
Yes.
It's really going to make some good material.
It for sure will.
Probably going to be a while from now, but it's certainly something that will make for great conversation on the podcast long term.
Yes.
So we have a cigar review today, which I'm pretty stoked about. This is one of which we're not going to get into now. Obviously, we save the podcast or the reviews for the end, but it is a cigar that has a ton of hype, and you guys know I'm a hype train guy, so I love new cigars that come out. I love trying new stuff, especially for or with brands that just produce greatness across the board. So I anticipate this one is not going to be any less than the others.
Sometimes it's like surfing, right? You're a bunch of surfers out in the ocean, and you see one guy take a wave, and you're like, that was actually a good wave.
It's a good wave.
Like sometimes, like in the cigar industry, you got to ride every wave you can, man. You got to ride every wave.
That's true.
Because if you don't ride that wave, you're going to miss out.
This is very
And that's
true.
what we're doing. See, waves are like hypes.
Ogres are like onions.
And cigars are like surfboards.
This is also
true.
true.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I feel like you're talking to me, but you're definitely talking to the audience.
I'm looking at a lens. I don't know where that goes.
I know. Would it be cool if the lens showed us a supported audience so we feel more connected?
I think I'd get stage fright.
I think it'd be kind of cool if they did that.
I think I'd get stage fright.
It would be like doing a live version of this show, which I've always been trepid in doing.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, yeah.
I like things to be produced because it gives me a higher level of comfort.
I feel like just based on our content and the people that listen to said content, it would be the biggest roast show.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah, it would. It would
we wouldn't be able to say more than a couple sentences before the audience fucking just turns on us.
Yeah. That is true. That is very true. So one thing that I wanted to bring up before we actually get into the cigar review and other topics of which, we're going to be discussing. Mm-hmm. There was some recent news, and this is good news. I would consider this a really good win for the tobacco industry as a whole. And that is, Chris, and I don't know if you've seen this. You've obviously had a very crazy week. court rules in favor of cigar warning labels being illegal. Now, this is a huge win because, if you guys remember back, part of this FDA regulatory process that is surrounding all things cigars, that has been in the cigar news for the past 3 years now, manufacturers were forced to change the labeling to show warning labels. And of course, a lot of people were like bitching and complaining because it's like the artisanship of the boxes themselves and so on and so forth. That's not the real big win here. It's not like, oh, you're making my otherwise great looking cigar box look ugly. This is a win, in my opinion, delabeling these boxes, of course, in the warnings, because it creates a connection to the fact that cigars really are, for health hazard reasons, not the same as you would categorize something like vaping or smoking. So the delabeling of the boxes, I think, creates a better long-term connection to that. For the most part, all things considered under this regulatory process should probably be disbanded. If the FDA is recognizing that these warning labels should not be situated on these boxes, they are in turn, in fact, admitting that cigars are not the same as other more harmful tobacco products. So I like the fact that this thing has now, been created as, okay, this is no longer appropriate. The government should not have done this. And now manufacturers are no longer required of putting these government issued you have to abide by government regulation in terms of the warning labels. We had that. So we had Skip Martin on the podcast last year, and we were talking about it because it was right at the time where they put these in place, and he was talking about just some of the hardships that are created as not only in terms of dollars, but really what it represents on the boxes.
Thousands of dollars in new graphic design changes as they were coming in.
It's a ton. It was funny because I was reading through a forum yesterday where people were talking about, okay, so this is a great win, but what is the government going to do to refund the dollars spent and absorbed by these manufacturers as part of the label? And I just started laughing. I go,
they won't.
I was like, you asked a rhetorical question. You know the answer to that. The government is not going to do anything in terms of, they're not going to go, hey, sorry, our bad.
Yeah.
Let's refund you all this money that you had to spend. That isn't going to happen. So let's take this as a win and move the fuck on, is what I'm saying.
And I'm glad it's a win, because where do we go from there if it stayed in effect? Are they going to put warning labels on ropes at the fucking Home Depot, like may cause tripping or hanging?
Right.
Like,
it's kind of like the whole McDonald's coffee thing.
Right.
Like, warning, coffee's hot. It's like, well, yeah, of course it's hot.
Isn't it obvious?
This is a little bit different, but what I like about this is that I don't think people realize to the degree of how big of a win this is for the cigar industry as a whole. Again, making the relation to what this could potentially curtail long term as far as the fight against the regulatory process from health reasons. Again, there's already a recognition if they're saying that, hey, these warning labels no longer have to be on cigars. It's because there is a recognition of the health hazards that I think people were led to believe cigars intruded on your life in terms of health reasons and so on. But there's a recognition that you take that label off the cigar and FDA says, hey, this is not appropriate. You're basically stating, hey, the same health hazards don't apply. So these labels should not be on these particular boxes as we stated they should be, in years past. So it's a huge fucking win. Huge, huge, huge win. And the battle continues, and I honestly think it's great because there's been some small wins up until now, through the regulatory process, certain hearings, and there's been some positive motion, and PCA has done a great job, Cigar Rights of America, and some really good manufacturers. I've got to applaud JC Newman has led this fucking battle, and with the support of a ton of other manufacturers saying, hey, this has got to end. Whatever they have presented to the FDA has listened and has now taken action against, which is fucking awesome. It's really, really, really good for the cigar industry as a whole. And I anticipate that there's going to be more to follow in this effort. And it's great to see that these manufacturers don't feel overwhelmed by the fact that they're taking on the government in terms of what is right and what is wrong. I think there's a sense of energy and, of course, ongoing passion for the cigar industry as a whole, where they're like, hey, this is not one and the same. We're going to keep fighting this battle. This is a great big win, and I anticipate that there's probably more to come.
Yes.
It's very cool.
You gotta ride the wave, you know? It's just like surfing. You know, there's people that ride the wave.
And you're just going to keep making surfing analogies, which I don't hate.
You know,
speaking of surfing,
like FDA regulations are like waves. And the surfboard,
they're like a rip curl. They're a rip tide.
And surfboard is like a JC Newman. And you got to ride that wave.
That's true. I don't know what you're saying, but I don't hate it. I was going to say, speaking of waves, I'm going to be, and this is more of an announcement, and also kind of like, good for me. I'm going to be in Puerto Rico next week.
Yep.
So starting Saturday, I'll be in Puerto Rico. I'll be there for a whole week. So we won't have an episode releasing 2 weeks from now. So we'll have one releasing this Monday. If you're hearing this now, it's released. But the next week, not going to have an episode because I won't be here.
He's got to basically do a 2.4 kilo cocaine run.
Yeah.
And get it back to the States.
Dude, I will tell you how difficult it is to get a Cessna plane when they say reason for the plane and you say gotta go run drugs.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. It's very challenging. I've only found a handful of people that are willing to fly on my behalf. So
yeah, like in the description it says powdered sugar ?
Yeah.
And they're like, And
then they go, why is it wrapped so tightly?
Yeah.
I really value my confectioner sugar.
Who wraps powdered sugar that way?
So I'm really stoked. So I always hate skipping weeks for episodes, but I think this is an appropriate time for both you and I, right? There's a lot of shit that's been happening. It's a good time to take just a little bit of a break because we haven't missed an episode in a really long time. Like we have just been hard charging.
There's been maybe a travel arrangement or maybe an occasional sickness where there's no voices.
Yeah, and extenuating circumstances, but we have not missed a lot. So this is like the first one I think we missed in probably a year. Yeah. So get over it.
Trust me when I
enjoy the Instagram content.
Trust me when I tell you this. You'll be cool when I finally tell you why we had to cancel that show.
Oh, for sure. Dude, I anticipate gonna be the biggest episode ever.
Man, it could be.
How do you tease that, though?
Dr. Phil, call me.
Yeah, no shit. I don't know how you tease an episode like that, though.
I don't know.
What's the lead up? I maybe just be very cryptic with certain things we can post on social media.
Yeah.
Almost like subliminal in a way.
Yeah.
You could for sure do that. So anyway, great win for the cigar industry as a whole, and appreciation for the FDA in recognizing that the cigar labels on the boxes is complete bullshit.
Absolutely.
So yeah, very, very excited about that. The other thing I wanted to talk about real quick is like I keep seeing these increases for the purchasing age of tobacco. You see a bunch of 21.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've seen like, okay, it's going to be 21. And it's like, even then I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And the argument people always make is like, okay, someone can enlist in the military and fight for an army or fight for, the U.S. and
put their life
on the line in terms of battle and war. Why can't they smoke a cigar? And I agree with those things. The harm that you would get from tobacco or the harm that you could potentially give to somebody else in terms of tobacco interrelated to alcohol because they both have a 21 purchase in some places, right? They're just not one and the same. So I think the 21 is ridiculous. What I think is more ridiculous is that Hawaii is now actually trying to implement a 25-year-old purchasing age of tobacco, which is fucking insane.
That's insane.
It's completely insane.
Listen, I get it. Both 21 age. You could have both of them, and if you had too much of either, you'd vomit.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So the similarities there, but here's where it's different. I could smoke a cigar and drive a car and get safely home. But if I pick up the bottle.
Right, like what we're doing right now. Like I plan on drinking for the remainder of the night and I don't plan on driving.
Yeah.
So.
But you have a little bit too much of that amber fire fuel and you try to drive home.
Yeah. You're driving on the wrong side of the road and you're going to hit a poor old lady.
You hit the child that's on his way to school. Yeah, it's 7 a.m. You drank too much that night. Decided to go home at 7 a.m. But bad shit can happen.
It's true.
But that's the distinction, isn't it?
It is the distinction, yes.
Impairment.
It for sure is, which cigars don't get. As a matter of fact, because of the heightened sense of nicotine, probably makes you more focused if we're being honest. I think cigars would be better for drivers.
Dude,
I usually smoke, so if I take early morning trips, like I do those trips to like Cleveland,
yeah.
or if I had to wake up early and go to Chicago, there's times where I wake up and I'm on the road at 5 a.m.,
Yeah.
I bring 2 cigars with me, and I'm telling you, if I start to get a little bit sleepy, just kind of a little bit like, you know, when the drive gets boring, you get on a really boring highway, there's nothing in between, there's no exits, there's nothing to excite you while you're on the road.
Yeah.
I light up a cigar, dude, and I'm immediately just fucking wide awake, and actually get a partial chub too. So I think it does even more than just heightened focused. It kind of makes me hard a little bit.
Yeah, dude. Like nicotine, it's like, you know what it's like? It's like fucking riding a wave. You know? And the wave, and the nicotine's the wave, and the surfboard's the car.
That's exactly what it's like. Let's curtail this conversation into something that I found to be very hilarious and something that I found online. So I already let Chris kind of listen to this, but I thought it was interesting. And let me preface by saying this. Okay, so we talked about it on a recent podcast that Skip Martin from RoMA Craft was with the folks from Cigar Coop. They kind of did this
review the reviewer
type thing, and just kind of a casual conversation around it, which I think is totally appropriate, because there's folks like Chris and I, which we don't take it to the degree a lot of people do. And I just want to say, Chris and I do this for fun. Like, this is reviewing cigars. Like, it's not one of those things where we're not a publication. We're not Half Wheel. We're not Cigar Aficionado. Like, we do it just because we enjoy doing it. We do it because we enjoy talking about it, and we like to impart our own opinions and subjectivity and knowledge on other folks who are kind of looking to absorb those things, right?
Yeah.
The intention around this podcast and what we do was really for a new wave, a new generation of cigar smokers, right? Making it relatable. That's why we do this. We don't do it to criticize. We don't do it to be, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like some people do it not with the wrong intentionality and with not a lot of integrity.
Sure.
So I think it's fair in certain instances that, hey, why not, if you're a Skip Martin or if you're a John Huber or if you're Nick Malolo, whoever you are, to criticize people that may be sometimes criticizing your product. I think it's fair. I think those roads should go both ways. But what I thought was funny is as a part of that Cigar Coop thing, there's a particular person who I want to say, first of all, I not only admire Skip Martin, but I admire this guy.
I admire this guy too.
I admire him as well. And if you guys subscribe to YouTube, in particular Cigar Reviews, he's under his YouTube pages, Should I Smoke This? And they're really, really short content reviews, which that's what I love most about his page, is like, how do you collapse these? You know, we have a podcast. It a lot of times goes up to an hour, right? But the short form content is really awesome. It's something I'm actually kind of jealous of. I'm a little envious of, because I'm very long-winded. I talk a lot. It's very difficult to do that. But he's found a way to collapse cigar reviews very quickly into almost a minute, 2 minutes. They don't really ever eclipse that. So Should I Smoke This is the Instagram handle, and is what the YouTube handle is. And I follow him, and it's something from that Cigar Coop show that he had actually posted on Instagram. So let's see if we can take a listen here real quick.
A friend of mine sent me a Facebook message and said, "Hey, Cigar Coop mentioned you in their podcast today." I was like, "Oh, cool. Send me the link."
Like, this guy who does the Should I Smoke This thing is a complete fucking joke, right? And he's just got garbage palate, and he's fucking rude, and it's a whole shtick.
Cool, thanks.
So he just ends it with cool, thanks. But what I want to discuss in this is that, again, going back to the idea of like reviewing the reviewer, right? And I don't know what this particular guy has said about the RoMA Craft product as a whole. I suppose there's been something damning to his product probably in one of his cigar reviews that Skip just truthfully didn't agree with, and that's totally fine. I'm not advocating for either side of this. I just think there's a different dynamic to the conversation now, because you have somebody like Skip Martin who is very, very, I would say, reputable in the cigar industry. Sure. One of the things that I didn't appreciate about it is, like, this is on his Instagram, and I'm scrolling through the comments and even commented myself, and a lot of people kind of damning the RoMA Craft line and their experiences with Skip Martin as a whole. Like, oh, he's an asshole. He kind of blew me off, told me to do this, and fuck their product. The product's not even that good anyway. It's super overrated. Everything tastes the same, so on and so forth. There's a lot of the comments that were embedded in that Instagram page. And what I would say is this. So we have had Skip Martin on this podcast before, and it was a very long episode. We really got a good intimate level detail of not only Skip Martin's past, but what he has done to really build the RoMA Craft brand with him and Michael Rosales and Danny
Nico
Vasquez.
Sueño, man.
They've done some really incredible shit. Now, we are very partial to RoMA Craft cigars. I fucking love them to no end. Like, some of my all-time favorite cigars, I have, people have seen my Tupperware collection of cigars, and a couple of people commented like, oh, you must love Crown Heads. You have a whole Tupperware container full of Crown Head cigars. Well, I have the same thing with RoMA Craft. So, or anything from Nico Sueño, I should say, more appropriately. So I love their cigars. So I think it's a little disingenuous for a lot of people to bash the cigars because they are fucking fantastic. It's hard to deny that. But what I wanted to discuss was just kind of the subtle banter back and forth. Like, do you think, and I'm asking Chris, I'm asking you this question, not the audience, because they can't reply. It's like, do you think it's appropriate to have those conversations? Do you think it's appropriate for someone like a Skip Martin to kind of turn it on its head and kind of review the reviewer?
Totally. I do. Like, here's the thing. Like, I want some of that hate. Send me some hate.
Dude, we get hate. You just don't see it.
That's true.
Dude, trust me, running the social media for this podcast, we get our fair share of hate, I promise you. But I have thick skin, though.
But here's the thing. Like, it's just par for the course. Like, it's just the more you're known, right?
Right.
The more, especially the more you're propped up on a fucking pedestal.
Sure.
The more people just want to take you down anyway.
Yeah, so there's
people become very opinionated.
Well, and there's like the troll factor piece of it too, and I could imagine so I'm trying to put my feet in the shoes of someone like Skip Martin. I think his feet are probably bigger than mine, but I'm gonna try to slip my feet into his moccasins, just for a second, or his sandals. He wears flippy floppies.
I want to slip into one of those delicious meals he makes so he can eat me.
Yeah, no shit. Good Lord. So you bring this product to the masses. And I know Skip makes things that he likes to smoke, and likewise, there's a ton of fucking people. They're insanely successful.
John's like that.
That they bring things to the world that you hope other people are going to enjoy as much as you enjoy them, which is one thing that I really truthfully admire about RoMA Craft. Like, they have not come off of that mindset since the beginning. And so I look at this and I go, okay, I understand both sides of it. And again, I'm going to say I'm like, at this point, very unbiased towards the situation because I can see it from both sides. I think Skip Martin is a guy who's very opinionated, and I think and I don't even think intentionally he's trying to be a dick or, like intentionally bombastic about a situation. I just think he is who he is. I mean, even with our conversation with him, I'm like, there was a joke that was made in the beginning of the conversation. He sent us some like really fucking good beers to sip on while we were having the podcast. It was fucking great. And one of the things I said is like, I'm going to have a hard time drinking these beers simply for the fact that I will shit myself if I do it. And I think his words were like, hey, you pussy. Like,
yeah, he totally
get your stomach in check. Which is like, I look at it and I'm like, that's the fucking most hilarious thing ever. Like, it made me laugh. And it's just like, I love that kind of banter. So I think sometimes people may take things a little far in terms of what is said, but I think in this instance, I think Skip is very, being very genuine in terms of like, hey, I don't appreciate what this guy does for one way or the other, and I think this guy looks at it and his following looks at it and goes, fuck RoMA Craft, but it's like, I want to say, is it appropriate? Is it not appropriate? Do we keep this shit out, or is it healthy to have this kind of conflict in the cigar world?
I think it's 100% healthy. I think the problem is people can't take criticism and turn it constructively.
Sure.
Now, granted, Skip didn't really elaborate on really too much.
Right.
But the point of the matter is, with any criticism, develop your own thick skin to either prove them wrong, right? Take a little pride in what you do.
Sure.
Or two, use it constructively to be better about what you do. And that's
True.
something very hard for people to learn.
Yeah, agreed.
But it's something I pride myself in.
Right.
Cory gets on my shit all the time. And I'm constantly You know what the thing is about Cory's sarcasm? It's like fucking riding a wave.
It's definitely like riding a wave. It's riding a wave that's going to bury you into the sand.
Yeah.
That's my level of sarcasm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And so I kind of look at this and it's, and again, love what this guy is doing. He's kind of, especially the quick, like 1 minute reviews.
Yeah, I like him too.
I love it. It's like fucking, I have jealousy around like the format and content you can produce for YouTube. Like, we're starting to figure out this YouTube thing, and we have some ideas that we have already bounced off of each other and that we want to move forward with, which we will. It's like one of the things I've always wanted to do is like quick, digestible reviews, and this guy probably does them better than anybody in terms of like the YouTube channel and so on. So I like what he does, and I also admire the fuck out of Skip Martins, probably because who he is one of the reasons I love him in this industry as much as I do, because he's very much like, this is fucking what it is. This is what I like. This is what I enjoy. And he's not afraid to throw his opinion out there. I admire that to the highest degree. I just didn't know in terms of like, Chris, what you thought as far as like, is this kind of shit appropriate? Is it a division, or is it something that we can continue having a conversation around? And I will say this.
Yeah.
I would love to have him on the podcast and Skip on the podcast, and you and I be the moderators and the mediators for it. It's kind of like arbitration if you work for a union. So if you're the manager, you're the managing representation of the corporate, and then you have the people who are the employers. Yeah. You always have to have an arbitrator in between. I'd love to be the arbitrator in that conversation. I think it'd be fucking sweet.
Dude, I love that idea. Or we can stage a fucking dance-off.
That,
right?
All right. Yeah, okay. I'm cool with that.
Like, take your anger out onto the stage, bro.
For sure. What are those really terrible movies they make?
Like
Step Up.
Step Up. Yeah.
Step Up. It'd be like a movie of Step Up.
Yeah.
It's really cool. You bring a gang with you, too.
But make it more like Stomp, so you're using trash cans and brooms.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Dude, Stomp was the shit.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's still on HBO.
I'm sure.
I may watch that tonight.
Is it still on Stomp?
Yeah.
Is it still on HBO?
Is Stomp still a thing? I don't know. Anyway, hey, so let's move on. We got a cigar review to cover. Got a ton of shit to do. So let's take a quick break. I think it's a good break time. I'm going to need a refill in a second. And we'll be back at you guys in just a minute with a fucking dope-ass cigar review. Hang tight. Alrighty. And we're back.
Do you ever just like stare into space?
I can't really see space from where we're at because of all the light pollution.
I just caught myself staring out of your window. And just
Speaking of windows, you want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
I haven't heard this song on the radio in a while. I'm pulling up in the driveway yesterday, coming back from the gym, and I just hear, "Come to my window, I'll be
Alanis?
home soon. I'll be home. Melissa Etheridge, dude.
Oh, Melissa Etheridge.
Yeah, that fucking dyke. She's great, though. Dude, that song was a hit. What happened to Melissa Etheridge?
She's still touring.
Is she really?
Yeah.
Good Lord, that song was awesome. And it was like on a really weird, obscure radio station.
She's still pretty, too.
Is she? I think we're thinking of someone different. I think Melissa Etheridge has a bowl cut.
Maybe.
Let's look her up.
I'm kind of into the dykies.
Yeah. I like a strong.
Is that appropriate? Am I not part of the woke culture or woke culture? Is that inappropriate to say that?
No, I think it's an endearing thing.
I mean, we put labels on them to differentiate anyway, right?
How do you spell Melissa?
Not Nicola Melli.
That's not it either.
Etheridge.
There we go. All right, Melissa Etheridge. Let's see what she looks like.
Yep, I take those.
Dude, Chris, you were so wrong. He's like, oh, she's pretty.
I'm thinking of someone else. I'm thinking of someone else.
Does she not look like a scarecrow?
Maybe I am thinking of Alanis Morissette.
She's not pretty either. Dude, Melissa Etheridge is not a good-looking woman.
You know what she looks like?
I like her. Like, she's still pretty. You know what she looks like? She looks like okay, so you remember the singer Jewel?
Yeah.
She looks like Jewel, but if she grew up in a trailer park.
Yeah, Jewel's pretty.
Yeah. Sure.
She kind of looks like Hillary Clinton's sister.
Ugh. Oh God, she does.
You know?
You know who she looks like? Who was that lady from Saturday Night Live for a while?
The blonde one. Yeah, she looks just like
the
her.
little chirpy girl.
Yeah.
Oh, what was her name? I forget her name.
She's
really
awesome.
funny.
She's in Parks and Recreation.
Was not thinking of Amy Poehler, but she kind of does look like Amy Poehler.
Okay.
So I'll give you. She's a cross between Amy Poehler and the girl that I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Who was like the one with like the really big eyes and she was real short.
Oh, yeah, Pat. She does Pat.
No, not different lady. Yep, still wrong, but that's okay. That's okay. You'll get it. You'll get it.
Hey, bro, when you tell a story, it's like fucking riding a wave.
Right. Like riding a wave.
You gotta take those waves, which are words, and the surfboard is my understanding.
Right. Exactly. Dude, you lost me the first time you said any sort of wave analogy. So, hey, we have our cigar review today.
Sure
I'm really
do.
excited about this one because this is one that was hyped to a very high degree back in 2019. This cigar, by the way, has been around since 2017, but it was an event-only cigar. And I am talking about none other than the Foundation Menelik. Menelik?
Yeah.
Menelik.
Wow, your details are much more on par than mine are.
Yeah, well, I'm stealing from someone else's website, so there you go. So this is the Menelik by Foundation Cigars. Now, this came to us as a regular production cigar in 2019. It was announced before IPCPR. I'm not even going to go into the background of the cigar because it's got a connectedness to like the Wise Man cigars and it's all fucking Ethiopian. There's some crazy shit. Honestly, if you want to know the fucking backstory of the cigar, just hit up Cigar Dojo or Half Wheel. They go through the explanation and the connectedness around the name of the cigar, which Nick is he seems like a very cerebral person. Seems very kind of like out there and creative. So I see the connection that he makes in this. And I admire that to a pretty high degree, but also it makes my brain hurt. So I don't really want to go into it on this podcast. So what I want to go into is the fact that this is a very hype cigar, is highly anticipated. It's out there now. Finally, I got my fucking hands on this cigar, which I was really stoked about. So that is, of course, what we're breaking down today. But as always, before we actually break down the cigar, Chris, how do we rate and review these cigars?
Absolutely, Corey. Thank you for asking. For any of you new listeners, I will break it down for you. I will spoon feed it to you in the most eloquently way.
Yep.
Brain fart. I apologize.
But
Each cigar review starts with a total of 60 possible points and is broken down into 3 main categories. 10 points for construction.
Mm-hmm.
You know it. 20 points for burn. Ooh, hot. And 30 points for flavor. Ooh, you taste so good. We then deduct points for less than optimal construction, burn, and flavor, and see if the cigar is worth the price for a possible 1% bonus or deduction. And then finally, we average out our individual scores, giving you guys our total cigar rating out of 60.
This is how we do it. That's the song I was thinking in my head the whole time you were
like
saying that.
You like that?
I like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like
Yeah, you
that.
like it. You definitely like
Yeah.
it. All right, let's get into it. What is this cigar comprised of? This is the Menelik by Foundation. Wrapper, Mexican San Andreas, a wrapper type that we've become accustomed to and that we dig to a very high degree. You have a Nicaraguan binder and Nicaraguan filler in this particular cigar. We smoke this in a Petite Robusto. This is a 4.5 by 52, and I will talk a little bit more about the smoke of this cigar, the actual burn experience of the cigar as it relates to being a very small cigar, and it comes at to you at a very, very hefty price point of $13. Now, think about it. 4.5 by 52, $13. That's a pretty expensive cigar, all things considered.
Yep.
So I'm going to preface this by saying I think we both would consider this cigar better be pretty fucking awesome for a $13 price point and a 4.5 by 52. Now let's get into it. Chris,
Let's beat her up.
Okay.
For the woke culture, you just have to lightly pat.
That's true. Yeah, you don't want to smack. No open fists.
Because that
No
evokes
closed fists.
that evokes
No
aggression.
backhands.
That evokes aggression.
Right.
And what I'm talking about is a light pat.
Just a light one. Just a
Yeah.
tippy. Just a tip.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, Corey. When it comes to construction of the cigar, it is a little 4.5 short pudgy. Mexican lady, nice dark skin, beautiful to look at. The troubling bit for me is that while she's a very well put together woman, I'm wondering what's up with her label.
You don't like the label?
So when I look at it, I feel like I'm looking at Indiana Jones's father's library, like his like little notebook,
Okay.
and The Last Crusade.
So you think it's Celtic in nature?
Yeah, like
Because a
they're,
couple people have looked at it and said this seems to be Celtic and
like
not
they're looking for
representative
the
like
Holy
Ethiopian.
Grail or some shit.
Right. So do you like it or do you not like it?
I mean, I feel kind of like I'm on an adventure, like Indiana Jones.
Okay. Do you felt like you were on an adventure smoking this cigar?
I mean, we'll get into that, won't we?
Sure, we will. That we will.
But great construction. Honestly, it was great for a box press.
Right.
Very, very well constructed. I will say this is probably, oddly enough, and maybe the size has a little bit of play in this being a shorter cigar, but did you notice how defined the edge lines were on this box press?
So what I loved about the construction of this cigar overall, for me personally, was the fact that everything seemed to be insanely smooth giving a box press.
Everything looked really precise about it.
Looked precise. I love the little kind of pigtail cap on it. It's a triple cap.
Yeah.
Triple cap, triple stamp, double stamp.
Yeah.
To me, it seemed like, and we talked about that, I think it was on the last podcast too, is like the seamlessness of tobaccos kind of integrated with one another. This one did that to a high degree, and a box press, which I thought was kind of fascinating. I did not actually expect that in this particular cigar. So it was, for just a little longer, a 4.5 by 52.
Yeah.
Very, very well constructed.
Yeah.
To me, the cigar was very dense. I do like the way that it was box pressed. It's a very dense cigar, and it's insanely firm. That's what I really enjoyed about this cigar. It's like, even looking at the wrapper type, it's very toothy. I thought the construction on this cigar was lights out amazing. Thought it was incredible.
It was a very good construction. I have to hand it off to Foundation on that. At this point, I feel like we need to like give accolades for really, really, really good construction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we talked about it on the last podcast. Like, if I could give bonus points specifically to the construction of the cigar, which I would argue is, it's weird. It's all important, right? I think we all say, like, we all want the balance and certain characteristics and flavor, but those experiences don't happen unless the cigar itself is wonderfully constructed, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like I kind of want to give a little bit more for the perfectly constructed cigars, which this one very much was.
Totally.
One of the nicer, I would say, nicely made cigars that I've seen in quite some time.
Yeah.
Minus the one from last week,
And
which was the Tricky Draca.
And plus points, 100 additional points for paying tribute to Indiana Jones.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
Last Crusade.
Which I'm not sure that's exactly what it was,
It totally is.
but I'd like to think it was
Totally is.
because I'm an Indiana Jones fan.
Yeah, like I'm that Arab guy that like pulls apart his shirt when they're in the boat.
And then he has the
He's
cross,
got the cross
on his
and you're
chest.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm a good guy. You're a good guy? I'm
I'm
a good guy.
My cross says it all.
We have a misunderstanding. Just let you know, I was just trying to protect it.
Right,
That's all I was trying to do.
right.
And then he was like, well, I'm just trying to, like find my father. So it's
Also
just
true.
a misunderstanding.
Right. So construction for both of us seemed to be pretty fucking on point. What did you think about the burn on this cigar?
Burns exceptionally well, which I would hope it would in such a short baby.
Yeah, it's kind of like the lesser tobacco that you have,
Just burns
probably
better.
the less consistency issues you're going to have as well.
A good 1-2 puffer produces quite a good amount of smoke. I will say this is where I begin to go from great to now questioning, though. I started to get a really weird run in it.
Interesting.
Like a really weird run. The best way I can describe it is if you were to take the profile of it, right? Everything's burning down. One side wasn't. It looked like my cigar had like a horse hoof of tobacco that just never burned.
Interesting.
And it stayed that way. And it got to the point that when I ashed it, I just had this hoof. Just stick it up. And I had to actually relight it just to even it out. I don't know why. I don't know if I've ever had that weird of a wonky burn on a cigar.
Interesting.
But I did have to correct it. So I did have to take 1 point away for that because it was the weirdest hoof experience thing ever. Other than that, burn's great. Good draw. Good mouthful of smoke. Retrohaling this one is a little tricky, I will say that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend that. I tried it and I went,
Yeah. We'll get into the flavors, but yeah, I'm with you.
But outside of that, we did the 5-minute hold test, put the cigar down, watch one of your favorite Indiana Jones movies, put it back in your mouth, If it's still lit, you pass the whole test.
Mm.
Did mine pass the whole test? Weirdly enough, it did not. And I don't know if it's just because of how short it is. I'm not entirely sure. It looked good when I put it down, but it literally had to be relit.
Mm.
So I had to take off another fucking point, which is the first time in a long ass time where I've taken points away from burn.
Sure.
But shit does happen. It's, sometimes it's unavoidable. I don't know. But other than that, other than those two little weird inconsistency burns and it just going out on me, the burn's really good for a little short, pudgy woman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you think, bro.
I thought the burn for me was exceptional. I just finished smoking this cigar probably about an hour ago. And for me, I would anticipate very minimal issues, of course, on a cigar that's this small.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I got. So not only did it burn insanely consistent, we talked about it last week with the Stevie Saka Tricky Traka. We talked about how evenly the cigar burned overall.
Say it again. I want to hear it again.
Stevie Saka Tricky Traka.
Oh, I love it.
I had the same kind of experience in this little donger, to be honest with you.
That's good.
So it burned evenly all the way through, and I love the ash that it exhaled. It was like a really nice bright white. It was very thick.
Yeah, totally.
So it burned great for me. The only issue that I had in particular with the drawl, with the burn was the drawl. It was a little bit tight for me. Now, here's what I like and here's what I don't like. I don't like a tight drawl. You know this. Because I have asthma. I have weak lungs. So I don't like having to produce that much. I don't want to put that much energy into smoking a cigar because, quite simply, I don't have the lung capacity for it. I just can't really ump it.
I feel you.
I think I've said it before on this podcast, but I remember one time in exploratory band, I tried out for the flute, any sort of reed instrument, saxophone, flute, clarinet. And guess what? It almost made me pass out every single time I tried playing them.
Yeah.
Not for me. That's why I'm a percussionist.
Yeah.
All about the hands.
I watched them.
I don't have great lung capacity, and this one had a bit of a tight draw that it was just a little too much for me. Now, what was crazy about it and the adverse of the tight draw is the fact that even with the tight draw, it was fucking giant amounts of smoke.
Yeah, totally.
It was a very full-bodied cigar, which was great.
Sure.
I imagine if the draw was just a little bit looser, which I did some things to kind of loosen up a little bit, which it did intermittently. I kind of had to keep doing it, kind of keep massaging the cigar a little bit. It was creating a ton of fucking smoke, which I greatly appreciated.
Could you imagine if you did have a looser draw? You probably would have created like a mushroom cloud of smoke.
Oh, it definitely could have created a mushroom cloud of
nuke
smoke.
went off out of your mouth.
Of course.
Yeah,
easily.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes shit happens with mine, Sometimes it's just, I don't know, odd bunching. I mean, the cigar felt pretty flawless in construction, but shit does happen, man. I don't know.
It does happen. It does happen now. So arguably the most important piece of what we do and in terms of grading is the flavor. The most subjective part, the most opinionated part. Chris, what did you think about the flavor overall?
I was afraid I was going to be on the Autobahn, right? Going 180 miles an hour straight flat road, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be the same experience from start to finish, but I'm going to do it in under half the time because, let's be honest, this is a little short 4.5 incher, right? I figured this would be a little quick experience.
Right.
Right? Here's where it gets nuts. This to me is the first cigar of 2020 that gave me the weirdest, wildest roller coaster experience in flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And
Amen.
it's such a short fucking cigar. It was crazy how much change-ups came along with this one. Hills and valleys, people, hills and valleys. The G-force blowing on my face or on my body almost caused me to pass out multiple times of how crazy it was. But this is what you get, folks. Bitter, meaty up front with medium spice. Bitter and meaty. That is literally what I felt I got, and I'm sticking to it. What's then crazy is it transitioned into woody flavors, almost like earthy, like wood. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? It was like I went from 5 puffs of like meaty bitter to like woodiness in such a short period of time. And then it transitions to even sweeter meaty notes. I'm like, what is happening in this cigar?
Yeah.
It's like, this is the only way I could put it, folks. Do you remember watching Willy Wonka?
Oh, you're going to talk about the boat?
No, but that is.
Oh, I feel like that would have been a good analogy.
Do you remember when Willy Wonka says, this is the most sensational bubblegum in the world?
Yeah.
And Violet grabs it. She puts it in her
Violet
mouth.
Bickerstaff.
Oh my word. Oh my God. Roast beef and
Oh
mashed
yeah,
and a
the
baked
schnozberries.
potato.
Yeah.
Dude, I seriously felt like Violet. Like I had a 4-course meal in my mouth of crazy flavors.
Violet, you're turning violet, Violet.
Yeah. Like by the time I was done with it, like someone had to juice me, bro.
Right.
I was peaking. And it's like, dude, someone just alleviate this. Like I was such on cloud 9 with flavors. The thing is, like, this is his first cigar of 2020 where I was like, dude, this is a good roller coaster ride of fucking flavors.
Yeah, some change ups for sure.
I loved it. And it kept like a medium spice throughout most of it, which you know me. If you know me by now, you know I love spice.
Yeah, this is your kind of flavor profile,
Oh,
I think.
yeah, this was my fucking dig, bro. Great cigar.
Yeah.
Great flavor.
I agree with you wholeheartedly in terms of the change ups. This cigar, in a short little fat donger that it is, gives you a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
I like the idea of, and we've talked about it before, and we talked about it on the last podcast, the flavors in the Tricky Traca kind of remain the same for most of the cigar, but what you get is so fucking good that you don't care, right? I think this cigar was appropriate to get all those change-ups. Because for me, really, in the beginning of the cigar, and I know it's your flavor profile, is really not matched with my favorite. It's not my favorite.
We have different ones, yeah.
It is kind of peppery. There's some spice element that comes to you very, very strong in the beginning of the cigar, which I've come to appreciate, but it's still not my favorite. But what I like is that when you kind of go, okay, I'm bored of this or I'm tired of this, it goes, oh, well, what about this?
Yeah, totally.
And then what about this? And what about this? It keeps you on your toes. I really like a cigar that is full flavored, that keeps you guessing as far as what's going to be next, especially in such a small vitola. I thought that was fucking incredible. You're talking about a 4.5-inch cigar is literally going, well, here's what's next.
Yeah.
Here's what's next.
Yeah.
Here's this other thing. What do you think about this? I admired that about this cigar to a very high degree. And although I didn't really like the first part of the cigar, I thought it got so much better after about the halfway point. And honestly, and this is weird for me to say because typically it's the adverse of this. I usually like the flavors that come with the cigar at the very beginning to the halfway point and even into a little bit of the final third. But I think for most cigars, they kind of end harshly. I really like the cigar. I thought it really started to get really good at the halfway point to the very end. Yeah. Those are the flavors of the cigar that I actually appreciated the most. I agree with you in terms it's a very meaty cigar. There's a lot of woody notes that I think come to you in the cigar, which I appreciate, especially here as a recent, that are balanced out with a little bit of the sweetness, which this cigar gives you as well. I like the kind of departure of pepper in this cigar towards the second half where it really transitions into something that's more earthy and savory. I like that. I think there's a complexity to this cigar that I think a lot of people could miss in terms of this blending process. But for this cigar, I thought was really fucking good. Didn't like the first half as much, but it really got going in the second half. And the second half flavors and that crescendo to the end, that fucking marathon sprint to the finish line, I thought was fucking awesome. I really enjoyed this cigar from the halfway point on. I thought it was pretty good up until then. I thought it was great from there to the end.
Yeah, it's crazy how much it just changed up. It's like it literally had a little bit, I think, for anyone's palate in it.
For sure.
But the question always remains.
Right.
Is it worth fucking $13?
4.5 by 52. Is it worth the fucking hefty price point?
I'll say
what
this.
What did you think?
Construction was amazing. It's great, right? It's foundation. The burn. I had questionable burn. I had a consistency issue. A little bit of wonky of a hoof that I had to correct, and it did go out on me. Shit happens, but this is the cigar I reviewed. Flavor. I love the flavor. I gave it a 27 out of 30. But here's the thing. It's a 4.5-incher, which you mentioned, which is very valid to consider for $13. I still feel like even as much as I love the flavors, it is not worth $13. In my opinion, for a 4.5-incher of such good quality as it is, even if I had perfect burn, this is like $11 smoke. And that's saying a lot for a 4.5-incher.
Sure.
This thing I only smoked for 45 minutes.
Right.
You know, this was a short cigar. It was great. It was amazing. Actually amazing. But the thing is like when I really think about it, being objective to the price and how long I'm smoking, and trying to blend that with the subjective nature of me loving the flavor as much as I did, I just feel like it's just a bit over the top.
Sure.
On price.
I would have to, in the same considerations, I'd have to agree with you. I thought the flavors were great, and construction-wise, cigar is out of this world. The tight draw, it wasn't super prohibitive, but it's still kind of an annoyance. So there's a deduction there for me.
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth $13. $13 is a hefty price point for such a fucking small cigar. Now, are you going to pay $13 for this all day long? Could you probably get better deals online? Sure you can. But if you're going to a Humidor, if you're going to a B&M, you're likely going to pay pretty similar to this price point. And I guess, Chris, what I'll ask you is let's say this cigar and another Vitola. Let's say a traditional Robusto, which may be like a 5x50 or 5x52, or in a Toro, which we could say like a 6x50, and you get the same flavor characteristics. Would you think at that particular point maybe $13 would be more appropriate?
Maybe. But I look at the other Foundation lineups, and there's two of the Foundation lineup cigars that I
already know what you're
absolutely adore. They're Tabernacle and the Tabernacle Havana Seed. And what price are those?
Right, sure. Okay, so in consideration of other things in the Foundation line, you say this is carrying a little bit more of a heftier price.
Yeah, a little bit.
For what you get. I would agree with you there. I would agree with you. And I gave it a pricing delta. I gave it negative because I think it's a little overpriced for what it is. But I kind of look at it and say, hey, if this is in that $10, even 4.5 by 52, if it's in the $9-10 range, I'm going, this is pretty fucking good.
I buy them fucking all the time.
It's pretty fucking good. I just think it's a little bit elevated in terms of pricing in comparison to other things you get in the market, or in comparison to other already fucking incredible cigars that you get from Foundation, being like the Wise Man Maduro. Of course, Chris already said the original Tabernacle, the 142 Havana Seed. There's so many good cigars in that lineup. Yeah. This one seems to be a bit imbalanced in terms of pricing.
Yes, 100% agree.
So what did you give it overall?
10 out of 10 construction. 18 out of 20 on burn. Had a couple issues and failed the hold test. 27 out of 30. This is my highest cigar thus far this year. 27 out of 30 on this cigar. Gave it a -1% because it is a little overpriced in my opinion. Comes in at a 90.7%.
90.7. Great score. So I gave it a 10 out of 10 on construction, which I thought was absolutely fucking amazing and damn near flawless.
Yep.
I gave it a 19 out of 20 on the burn because I had the tight draw issue. And I gave it a 26 out of 30 on the flavor because I really didn't enjoy as much of the first half, but really enjoyed the second half.
Yeah.
And that also gave me a 90.7.
Really?
Yeah, tight score.
That's exactly a 90.7.
Which we would round out to a healthy 91%, which I think is completely appropriate for this cigar.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, in another Vitola, if it was just a little bit more tobacco with the same flavor characteristics, the same complexity, not much has changed, but just more tobacco, maybe a longer smoking time, somewhere in that hour 15, hour 30 range. Dude, this is like a lights out amazing cigar I'd recommend all day long. And I would actually recommend it anyway because I think from a flavor perspective, it is so profoundly different than anything I've had in a long time. And the change-ups, that constant roller coaster ride, and it's a short roller coaster.
It's
like the face-off at Kings Island.
It's like the Raptor at Cedar Point.
It is.
It's like super short, but it's like,
we're not talking about the Magnum. We're not talking about the Beast. You're going to be on it for like 5 minutes. You're going to be on this thing for a couple minutes. But those couple minutes are fucking great.
They're wild, bro.
It's insane. So, hats off. Fucking great cigar. Foundation did another one in this crazy store-only special that is now a full production cigar in the Foundation lineup. Couldn't be more pleased. Thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
All right.
You know what? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's end it there.
That's a good point.
We've got some... So, again, no podcast next week. Sorry about it. I'm
going to write a review.
Chris is going to have a review that he's going to post next week. It'll be like the third one. So all the reviews that have been recently written have all been me. Chris has not literally written none of them. So
do you ever get writer's block?
Please go. Yes. As a matter of fact, you know what I do? As I get blitzed out of my mind and then I write. And then I'm like, oh, there's where the creativity comes from. So Chris will have a review that he'll post next week. So we'll have that in terms of cigar content for you. We're going to continue doing some. We've actually done a little bit of kind of some weird testing as far as YouTube stuff. We've got some ideas that we're going to be doing with that. So keep an eye on that. And I also have creating a new podcast studio. Construction starts everything starts this coming Monday while I'm gone and should be completed in the next 2 weeks. So once that stuff's done, we'll have a brand new fucking podcast studio to record in, which is going to be dope.
Yeah,
Very
dude.
excited about it. I will say this, Chris. Cheers. Cheers to you. Cheers to the audience. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back at you in 2 weeks with episode 138. See you, everyone.
Bye.